All right. Hello, everyone. This is Rick with the Cyber Pro podcast. It's where industry leaders share their insights because hackers never sleep. Today, we have Garret. Garret, you are the CEO and founder of youattest. Talk me through who you are and what you do.
I'm Garret Grajek. I'm an identity guy. That's literally what I know. I've been hired literally at companies building products. There was a company called Silence, if you all remember, and they built a product based on AI, and they wanted to try a whole bunch of different things. And they said, let's try an identity AI product. Go hire me an identity guy. And that's, they found me and I built them something. So I call myself an identity guy. I'm an identity cybersecurity for the last 30 years, and now I'm really focused on identity governance, risk, and compliance.
Garret, what are some recent evolutions in the cyber and identity space that you are noticing are happening today?
The word is not plastics, but metrics. The word is metrics. And it's one of those, as a cyber guy for the last 20, 30 years, are we secure? Okay, well, what's the metric on it? And that kind of hurt my brain. It really did. When people started pushing me for metrics on cybersecurity, I was like, you're trying to ask for the quantification of the unquantifiable. But we have to. We literally have to. We have to for a couple of reasons. One, it's corporate requirements. I just got a governance certification called a CGEIT. I don't need to know what it is, but it's basically corporate level governance. And it really pushes for something called a business scorecard. And it says, hey, us as a board, we have to do a better job of understanding, first communicate the vision, communicate the task, and then the teams have to come back to us and tell us how they're doing. So how does a board who's obviously not skilled in all these things, most boards are skilled in stocks and pricing and valuations. That's what they're skilled at. They're not skilled at how are our identities doing? How is our systems doing? How is it? They need metrics. So it's on us. It's on us in the product builders. How do we quantify our products in a way that can be communicated to the non-technical that say we're in bad shape, reasonable shape, or great shape? That's the new push in our industry into cybersecurity. How do we, first of all, come up with the metrics and then communicate it? And what's the best way, not only to package the communication, but where? Where should we give this information that it adds value? So that's what I see the big change in 2024 going on, is metrics of cybersecurity communicated to people who are not necessarily cybersecurity proficient. That goes way beyond the guy standing in front of the SOC.
I love it. I love the idea of it. I think people forget how hard it is to manage up, right? To talk about what you're doing in a value add to those leaders who are just looking at you going, are you just pushing a keyboard enter key? So I appreciate that response. I want to pivot just a little bit, and I want to understand if you're seeing any common misconceptions about cybersecurity and specifically identity management that you're encountering.
I can go on for the next hour on this. It's authentication. People confuse authentication with identity. They honestly believe, oh, I've solved the identity problem. I put 2FA in front. I have 11 patents in authentication. It's good stuff. It's not knocking it. It's needed. It's good stuff. It's somewhere, all on the call, do your own brain. Somewhere probably between 5-10% of what identity is. Okay? Because let me help people's brains at identity. Authentication is a quantifiable way to help systems come up with a reasonable trust of an identity. And I mean it, reasonable. It doesn't mean that's the user. There is so many ways to get around authentication, and I'm not bashing the authentication providers. Because the number one way to get by authentication is to hack the system and steal the session ticket. Become the user. Just hack the form. You don't have to figure out cryptography. Cryptography is hard. It really is. I got a bunch of patents at X509. It's pretty good stuff. All that Lisa Ellis stuff. That's really good stuff, and quantifiable encryption, all that. No, just hack the form, grab the session ticket, become that user, and go to town. That's where the problem. So what are we doing in identity? If it's reasonably plausible that ill-intentioned a user or hacker can get our identities and become our users, what are we doing? What are those identities doing, right? Do we even know what those identities have permissions for? Palo Alto said, this is their number, not mine, and I think Palo Alto is a pretty good company, said 99% of cloud entitlements are overprivileged. Okay? Given that we know that all of authentication can be bypassed because of either sloppy implementation, SMS attacks, blah, 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 shouldn't we be concerned that our real wall to execution, the identities and the identity privileges, are just a mess? That's where I say that's the frontier on identities, is to, one, do a better job at permissions, and two, do a better job of knowing what the user is entitled to and what they're doing in real time.
Garret, why do you feel identity governance should be considered a robust component of any cybersecurity stack?
Okay, and this is where, I know I mock certifications or whatever, when someone said I should get this, help me in a discussion. It is identity governance is, let me define what governance is first to help people understand. Governance is the art and the practice of giving us a set of ways that we can communicate between groups of our objectives. Okay? I mean, we see it all the time that the CIO makes a speech, right? No one in the room understands, and it's either, it's a yes or no on the decision based on, some arbitrary decision, right? Whereas governance, if a real governed enterprise, the objectives are set, the duties are then distributed, and the metrics are constantly created and communicated. So everyone's on board, right? Whereas, you look at it, and what I should have added is risk are identified. Let me put that in a kind of just relevant topic, y'all. Company just released a what do you call that? Their agent on computers that went on Windows computers, right? The risk of that is, okay, since we're affecting the kernel, we probably should test the living crap out of that piece of it, okay? Because if you affect the Windows kernel, what is the risk of that, right? That's governance. Governance is actually quantifying what the risks are, identifying the groups who are responsible, and making sure that the right pieces are in place. And that's just an example because I wanted, that's on people's minds, right? How could you not say that for identity, right? What is the risk of, I don't know, someone who sells tickets online? If all the, in hypothetical, of course, right, Rick? If all the identities that have that with the BHI, the PII in there, is taken by a hacker, what is the risk to the business, right? And what should be the government's, and watch this word, controls? What should be the controls around access to that data, right? And the proper risk and the practices and procedures about securing that data. That's what governance is. We start at the risk, we start at what we value, we come up with the mechanisms, we assign duties, and then we constantly dialogue with each other. What is the way? And we give ourselves a mechanism to dialogue to each other. And I would put 2024 going forward, identity governance at pretty much the top of that, because our businesses live or die off of our identities.
Garrett, final and fun question for you. What is your favorite piece of retro technology that makes you smile?
I don't know. I just spent 3 days for no reason fighting my printer. And I really did. I'm going to make a YouTube video. It's the dumbest thing in the world. There's a mechanism that if the tray is not in place, that it makes you buy a new one. I go, I'm not going to buy a new one. I'll figure out how to set this up. But I would not put that in that category. My favorite retro technology is how retro is it? I'm in love with Google Docs. I screwed it.
Okay.
I could literally, build a nuclear power plant off of Google Docs because you just collaborate with everyone and get it to going. So I've really become good with Google Docs.
Garrett, thank you so much for being on the Cyber Pro podcast.
Enjoyed it. This was fun, Rick. All good.
Thank you for tuning into the Cyber Pro podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on new podcasts and all of our cool bonus content.